Thursday afternoon chat. Your favorite artists with Jayar.
All right, I wish I had a sound effect for this. Maybe I should just make one. First timer on the show. Please welcome Benjamin William Hastings. How are you, mate?
I'm very good. How you doing?
All right. We have a lot of our staff in our building are fans of yours.
Oh, that's nice.
And then gradually there's converts and then more converts. We're spreading your non-capitalized gospel throughout our station. I stress non-caps because I'll get emails for using that term. But yeah, great to have you. And we're going to do, we rarely, I like to push play on songs and have it play off the actual recording so people can be like, here it is and all. But there are some people where it's like, oh, I think this will be better if you just pull out a guitar and do it live. So
cool.
We'll do that. You've got a new song with one of our favorites on the show, Blessing Offer.
Yeah, what a guy.
He's a great guy.
He is.
One of the questions I asked him, and he loved it, but I said, what do you think I look like? And he just went nuts because I said, what color am I? How tall am I? What's my weight?
How did he do?
He thought he was pretty good with the height because I bet you his voice, he could tell where it's come from. He guessed that I was chunkier, and which isn't fair because we hugged when he walked in. So he got, but he went with pasty white.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was pretty good.
Yeah.
So
hair color? Did he get?
We're like, he is not blind.
No.
He made this whole thing up.
Oh my God.
So I like
it is pretty amazing how he's so like he's amazing. Like the way he just navigates a room. Yeah. The way you forget you forget so quickly that he's blind.
I did forget because right when he walked in, I was like, all right, we're gonna, just like you and I are sitting behind these mics. I was like, we're over here, and I started walking away from him, and I left him.
Right.
So there's wires, and it was like, oh, idiot. And I had to keep walking over. So he is good, but in a room like this,
well, you need to make sure.
Please walk me over wires.
Completely.
Let me see if I got this right. You grew up in Northern Ireland, but then lived in Australia for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
I was in Northern Ireland until I was 19. Moved to Australia for 10 years.
Okay.
Met a girl, got married, 2 Australian kids.
Sounds like a country song.
It does.
A Keith Urban song.
Yeah. He's the only one that could sing it. Yeah. And then we moved to California.
So you probably have similar accent problems that I have because I spent 2 years in Ireland, grew up in Seattle,
right,
and then moved to California, and then moved to Nashville, and then Florida. So people will hear things, and I'm like, okay, I must have, like with you, it probably comes out my 2 years of being surrounded by Irish people.
Yeah.
And I watch nonstop English football, so that doesn't help the accent as well. But it is kind of, when you've moved around a little bit, your accent becomes something that nobody else has. It's
complete, and you become a nomad to everyone. So I go back home, everyone's like, wow, you sound so American. And then in Australia, everyone's like, it's funny, like no one like you don't get owned by anywhere. It is, my accent's a mess. I don't know what
which is interesting because in all my travels, the Northern Irish accent is the most unique on the planet. Yeah. And you have to have gone from Ireland to England to Northern Ireland to see the Northern Irish one is an anomaly.
It really is.
Like how would you say IRON? Iron. Yeah. It just becomes this beautiful thing. Yeah. Like in America, we've got Boston, not Massachusetts, but Boston, inner city Boston. Yeah. All of a sudden, it becomes this thing that only people around the docks would speak like that, and it would spread a little bit, and then you hit the middle of Massachusetts, and it would just become New England-y. Right. But it's Northern Ireland's like our Boston. Yeah, in a sense.
It is. It's very thick. I bumped into the Rent Collective guys earlier, and it was jarring, like because they've kept their accent 1,000,000%, especially Gareth. Yeah. So the moment he speaks, you're just like, oh wow, like it's a full it brings me all the way back home, and then it starts to come out. Oh yeah. In my voice,
like it doesn't take long. I'm so glad I got away from that. Yeah. One more for you. How would you say MIRROR?
Mirror.
See, it has
one syllable.
Because you would used to probably say myrrh.
Yeah. It's any vowels. Any of the vowels are that's what really comes out, like tile, car, rye.
The Ren guy said that one time when they first moved to the States, they were trying to order a pizza, and the guy thought it was a prank. Because every word they were saying, they thought he was... I mean, imagine how frustrating that is, that the pizza guy thinks you're messing with him. Yeah. Putting on some weird...
It's really funny.
And they hung up on him.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Oh no, it was Buffalo Wild Wings to go, and he still has a hard time going there because they won't believe he's real.
That's really funny.
Let's go. Let's have you talk about before you play it. One of the biggest worship songs on the planet you had a hand in the song "So Will I," which I will just set this up by saying it was with Hillsong, but you wrote it, right?
Yeah, I wrote it with Joel.
Okay.
Joel and I, and another friend of mine, Michael Fatkin.
Okay.
Yeah.
But to me, it's one of those songs that has one of the greatest bridges of any worship song because it just takes you on this adventure where you feel like you're floating through stars and galaxies. And it's putting into perspective this very powerful concept that a lot of us get very faithless from time to time, just going about life. But like when you look at nature around you, it has this way of constantly reminding you of who you're talking to.
Right.
So if you wouldn't mind, just how did this epic worship song come to be? And then we'll go into you playing it.
Yeah. Look, it was one of those kind of, I don't want to say magic, it's probably the wrong word, but one of those kind of like things that were just like fell together. And there was a lot of like, we worked hard on it, like, and we talked. So much of it was just great conversation. Like Joel and I, we were kind of friends, but not really yet, and we'd never written together. And so we kind of just really became really good friends just in this process by staying up late and just talking about God. And it would be like, and not just God, but talking about like nature and talking about science and just all of these fascinating things about creation that were inspiring us about God. And it kind of poured its way into this song. I sent him, because I started it with Michael Fatkin, and I sent it to him, and he was like, "Oh, this is really cool. Like, can I have a little mess with that? I've got an idea." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So at that point, it had in it the "As You Speak, 100 billion galaxies are born." An hour later, he sent me back like a gazillion lyrics, and one of them was "As you speak, 100 billion failures disappear." And it was like immediately, it was like, wow, okay, I can see what this is going to be now. We can take this on a full journey. And I remember texting back to him, I was like, I love this. I was like, it's like no one's going to sing it anymore, but like at least we'll like it. And he replied, he was like, I think you'll be surprised what people will sing. Yeah. And at the time I was like, nah, no way. I just thought there's like, this will be a song for songwriters, or like it'll be a deep cut on a record.
Something to show your grandma. Exactly.
But it was pretty crazy how it kind of just all came up and happened. And a lot of it was from just kind of digging into nature and just all of, there's so many beautiful, amazing things happening that I think we can learn a lot about God through. Right. God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. And if the stars were made to worship, so will I can see your heart in everything you made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. And if creation sings your praises, so will I. You're a God of your promise. You don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. Whoa, and as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. And if it all reveals in nature so alive. 'Cause I see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, a canvas of your grace. And if creation still obeys you so alive. So alive. If the stars were made to worship, so alive. If the mountains bow in reverence, so alive. And if the oceans roar your greatness, so alive. For if everything exists to lift you high, well then so alive. And if the wind goes where he sends it, so alive. If the rocks cry out in silence, so alive. And if the sum of all our praises still falls shy, then we'll sing again 100 billion times. God of salvation, you chased down my heart through all of my failure and pride. And on a hill you created the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. But then as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. And if you left the grave behind you so alive, I can see your heart in everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. And if you gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart 8 billion different ways. And every precious one is a child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one.
Hey, look at that. There you go. That's you've heard that song many times, but this is the first time having the guy that had a hand in writing it here, Benjamin William Hastings. This is very rare for me to be able to talk about my past days pre-radio, living in Ireland, living in Dublin, in a missions group for 2 years. And because you grew up in Northern Ireland, did you have a one day that you had to do a religious retreat, school retreat? Or was that just the Ireland side?
No, yeah, that was so I grew up, Northern Ireland's very complicated, but I grew up on the Protestant side.
Okay.
Like the last thing my granddad said to me was, remember you're British before he so if he'd be rolling in his grave now, and even how much I would just be like, yeah, I'm Irish, because it's so much easier than explaining, oh, I'm Northern Irish and like whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, remember you're British.
His final words?
His final words to me.
Wow.
I know.
All right.
And he was a sweet man, but he definitely was proud to be.
So you would say Londonderry.
He would, yeah. He
would. Well, it is in Ireland. They 97% very Catholic.
Yeah.
All the kids and the American people listening right now would be like, you had to do a religious day in public school, and they had to do one religious day, and usually they would bring in priests or nuns to give a one day. They would say it's so boring to the for a 14-year-old kid sitting there listening to a 80-year-old priest talk about God. There's a disconnect. So they'd bring us in 18, 19 years old to do these talks and dramas and stuff like that.
That's cool.
And so we did that all over Ireland, including into Northern Ireland. And I will tell you this. This was right when there were still bombings going on.
Mm-hmm.
We had a guy come speak that had lost his wife and daughter a week before in a bus bombing in London. And I was like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
You just had your wife and daughter blown up. So it was very impactful, him talking to us. But I was in the thick of seeing it firsthand.
Yeah.
And I still remember the first time we drove from Ireland across the border into Northern Ireland. Instantly, the roads became smooth and blacktop. The cars, you're seeing beautiful, like fancy sports cars, and then like down in Ireland, you're just lucky the thing's running. VW vans that are like you cross right into Northern Ireland. All of a sudden, you're seeing Porsches, and just these beautiful cars. And funny. I don't know that I would want to leave the UK either. But it was interesting to see that. You see these machine gun guards standing on towers as you cross into Northern Ireland. And it was like it all became very, very real. But
and what's cool is none of that's there anymore. Like as in there's still the police still have ginormous like guns and like all that kind of stuff, but there's no border so the only way you've crossed is the line on the side of the road goes from yellow to white.
Right.
And that's how you know.
Oh,
there's one point where it just changes color.
Well, it's almost shifted too because of all the tech money that's come into Ireland now. Ireland's become, at least cities have become quite posh. But I wanted to ask you, now living in LA, what is one thing about America that you would go home to Northern Ireland and say, oh, I wish we did it more like where I live? And maybe one thing when you go back to LA, you're like, oh, I wish Northern Ireland could come here. Yeah.
I think that's a good question. I mean, there's certain foods that probably in both respects, like in Ireland, there's some of that like homemade kind of like even the like when you go to a pub to have a meal, like the homemade kind of food there just tastes different. It's a very different sort of. It tastes like your grandma made it.
Yeah.
As opposed to like if you went to like a sports bar or something here, it tastes like.
Oh yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Came from a package.
Yeah. Whereas it is like there's someone at the back making like a stick pie, and it's like it's amazing.
She's old.
Yeah. And then I guess one of the things I really love about back home is that it feels like a small town. Like it's so relaxing when you go back. Like the pace just entirely changes. Which in LA there's benefits to like the craziness, but I definitely miss the chill kind of relaxed.
There are actual towns
that
have sort of a town center.
Yeah. I mean, the suburb that I live in, it's literally a suburb in LA, would have like 10 times the amount of people as some of the cities in Ireland. Yeah. Because in Ireland, the only thing that, the only qualification to be a city is that there's a cathedral in it.
Oh, wow.
So there's this little town called Armagh, like probably 30 minutes from where I live, and it has 2 cathedrals. Yeah. So it's like, well, it's definitely a city, but it's got 15,000 people.
Right.
And it's
Twin
like,
City.
It's literally it's a town. In America, it wouldn't even be.
Right.
Like,
wouldn't
anyway.
even have a post office.
No.
But it's got 2 cathedrals.
So it's a city.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to go into what about traffic, LA versus Northern Ireland?
I'll take Northern Ireland any day. And it blows
cheap
like
market day.
Yeah, completely. Like that is the bit actually. You can end up getting stuck in traffic because you get stuck behind a John Deere, and there's only one lane. Yeah, and you're there for like the next 25 minutes. Like, and you can try to take him, but the roads are so bendy that it's kind of at your own peril. Like you've got to, like when to. You never take on a band. Oh,
it's already the tour buses. For anybody that ever goes, if you ever drive over there, the roads when you start getting out of cities. The roads are so tiny, and there's hedges to your left.
You have to learn to drive in a. You have to learn with the car getting smashed by the hedge.
Yeah, You do not value your vehicle because your left side is going to get torched by whatever bushes are on the left. But then you see these giant tour buses driving the same roads your little tiny Peugeot is driving. Yeah. And it's like, how is this tour bus winding through? And then I never got stuck behind a sheep. It was cows.
Oh, yeah.
And lots of them. And there's absolutely nothing you can do.
No.
You're just like, it's waiting.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that worse than LA?
I guess pick your battles.
Yeah.
It's I mean, LA is crazy, but you kind of learn. The thing about Northern Ireland is that is very unpredictable. Like you could be late for a meeting, and like you said, there's just a million sheep on the road, and it's like, well, there's nothing I can't drive through them.
Yeah.
We're just gonna have to wait this out. Whereas in LA, you kind of learn. You plan your life around the traffic without even noticing it. Like I'm never actually going for lunch at lunchtime.
Right.
I'm going for like a brunch or like an afternoon lunch.
Right.
It's like you don't drive at one.
Windows.
Exactly.
Of time.
Yeah.
That's the meeting.
Yeah. But you don't even think about it. Like when it's just people plan to meet around it, it becomes like in the same way you wouldn't plan a meeting in the middle of the night. You just wouldn't do it at certain times.
Yeah.
It's funny. It becomes too natural.
Let's go into, if you wouldn't mind playing for us, the latest song that we're playing here, but to have you do it on guitar, except we're missing Blessing Offer.
We are
on this one, but I would say I'd stand in for him, but you don't. It's better if you just do both parts. That's the thing about praise. Can you just walk us up kind of DNA of the song before you play it?
Yeah, I'd love to. So last year I put out a record that was like really long, 25 songs, and on it I kind of talk through and explore a lot of kind of things I was going through. I was having doing a lot of wrestling with God, a lot of doubt, and kind of was in a really funny place. But I kind of was able to slowly work through it. And this song, I guess to me, was kind of like the resolve of the record. Like I wanted something that felt hopeful and that kind of spoke a little bit to where I landed. And what I like about the resolve is it's not like, oh, cool, I made it, everything's fine now. Like the resolve is actually like, oh no, I think I'm going to get through this. And maybe the best way to get through it is by just remembering who God is. There's a line in it, most days faith is walking up a mountain that stayed. And to me that kind of summarizes a lot of what the record's saying and really what this song is. And what I think is really cool about God is that it's like he doesn't always like flick the mountain away, but he does promise to be the shepherd. And he'll get you to the other side. So it was really cool. It was really cool to kind of be a part of this and we worked really hard to try and find that song and it be something that resolved in a way that felt really authentic and genuine. And I'm so grateful to Blessing kind of jumping on and being a part of it. We had such a fun day together. And what was really cool actually is I'd never heard his stuff. Yeah. And I was having lunch with Brandon Lake. And he was like, have you ever heard of this guy Blessing? I'm bringing him on tour. I was like, no. He sends me Tin Roof. And I just lost my mind. I was like, it's one of the best songs I've ever heard. And so I'm talking to my producer. I said, do you think this guy would want to come finish the song with us? And he was like, oh, I just made his EP. Like, I could ask him. I was like, okay, great. Yeah. So he calls Blessing, who is one of the hardest workers you'll ever meet, like has sessions every day, stuff planned. But he was like, you know what? I've actually kept Monday free because I felt like something special was going to happen. Huh. So he came in.
And you were that something.
I was that something special. It was really cool. So we had such a fun day. Finished early, went and got barbecue. Like it was like, a lot of the record was really like, it was like what's like a good kind of work. It was like it was a grind. Like it was like I need to make sure this is right. That felt like the easiest day ever. Right. So it was a nice contrast to how a lot of the other songs came.
Yeah. And this is what came out of it. Let's go into it here.
When the rain you want is a flood instead, and the roses bloom, but they're not quite red. When I reach the edge of my bravery, I'll still be singing at the base of an unparted sea. Sometimes the only way to do it is hallelujah. Sometimes the only thing to do is just to hand it to you. And although my troubles shake me, I know they will never move you. I guess the only way to do it is hallelujah. And that's why I say hallelujah. hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, there's what I want, and there's where I'm at. Everyone step forward, got me 5 steps back. And I cried, I called, God knows I prayed. But most days faith is climbing up a mountain that stay. That's why the only way to do it is hallelujah. I guess the only thing to do is just hand it to you. And although my troubles shake me, I know they will never move, yeah. So the only way to do it is hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, that's why I say hallelujah, hallelujah. Look, it don't always fix your problems, but it'll tell you how small they are. That's the thing about praise. That's the thing about praise. And I can't say it always moves that mountain, but boy, it's good for the heart. That's the thing about praise. That's the thing about praise. And you never know what it's gonna change, but it'll always leave a mark. That's the thing about praise. Yeah, it's the thing about praise. And so I might see walls start falling, or it might just change my heart. That's the thing about praise. The thing about praise. 'Cause the only way to do it is hallelujah. And the only thing to do is just hand it to you. So although my troubles shake me, I know they will never move, yeah. I guess the only way to do it is hallelujah, hallelujah. That's the thing about praise. You never know what it'll change, and that's why I say hallelujah, hallelujah.
We are wrapping up with Benjamin William Hastings, which, by the way, your latest album is actually, this will help me get into this last question. Your latest album is this just beautiful piece of art. You don't go through and go, oh, that's a formula radio worship song. It feels like this is a pouring out of artistry, of like, this guy knows what he's doing, he's working it out, and it's just beautiful music.
Thank you.
And where I want to go is you've also written songs that millions of people all over the world, writing a worship song is a very important thing, and it's a very deep thing. These songs, like So Will I, has changed a life. I mean, that's a big thing to carry, that a song you wrote with a couple guys all of a sudden has changed a destiny. Yeah. So writing worship is an important, deep thing. But then your latest album, yes, it's worship, but it's also a beautiful piece of art. Talk to our audience that are not songwriters listening right now about that. How tough is that dance between, okay, this is an offering, this is I hate to use the word ministry so much, right, but like life-changing stuff. And then I'm also an artist. Sure. That makes, how tough is that dance for you?
Yeah. It's actually been one of the funnest things about getting to do this project, and kind of been able to, like, really it came about because I started to write these songs. I've always felt like I've had opportunity and enough scope for the songs I've had, but this was the first time where I was like, oh, this song doesn't fit on anything I know, like I can't, like, there's no artist that I know that this would make sense for. Yeah. So I was like, I guess maybe I should just sing it. Like, that was kind of where I landed. Like a song like Faith Is or Dancing With My Shadow, they're so like personal. Father's Blessing, like, they're all such personal songs to me that I probably was the only one that would have been honest to sing. And I think I really enjoy the both and, like, the worship and artistry, because to me, I think everyone has a different, like, you say, calling or niche or whatever the thing is that they have to offer the world. And I think for whatever reason, mine kind of found itself in this kind of like, I almost don't expect my worship songs to work. Like, I don't expect them to be singable. It's not really what I'm thinking about when I'm writing them. To me, they're like, I'm trying to write a song to God that feels as genuine as possible and that conveys like whatever the, I guess, like the underlying truth is that I've discovered and want to share. And if people sing along, it's kind of a bonus. And so it's been cool to do, like, there's some songs that I knew no one ever had a chance of singing along to. So it was kind of cool to actually let those songs exist and just let them be what they be what they be. Yeah. And nailed it. and then it's really nice when you do write songs that people do. Like, there's a song Brandon and I wrote called Gratitude that's kind of like,
I've heard of it.
Yeah. And there was we had a moment on tour where he would bring me back up at the end of the night and like we would sing it, and I would just a couple of nights I didn't even sing along. I just sat at the back of the stage, just like watching and just amazed at like the fact that people would want to like join in this thing that I remember writing in our living room. And so that to me is like the coolest thing when you get to see, when you kind of write it being like not almost with the intent of just trying to write that song to God, but then it ends up actually being helpful in a church setting or in a setting where people want to sing along.
Touch on that for a second, because I had Brandon on and he described the moment looking at the Sydney Opera House with you and another guy. And because I asked him, it's one of the most passionate bridges in faith-based music history, and he's like, that wasn't the first take. Like it was later that's like, this isn't believable enough to me. And it was like many takes later that all of a sudden he's like almost like a tearing of the shirt type moment.
Yeah, completely. I mean, there was, so we did it. They came. I'd never met Brandon before, and to be honest, the moment I met him, I was like, this guy's special. Like, there's something really unique happening here. And I don't think he'd really put out much. He'd maybe just written this as a move. And that was kind of all he'd done. And it was. So I was like, okay, this guy's really special. I really want to write something that's gonna like together, that's gonna like help him and like be useful for what he's saying.
Look at you helping little Brandon Lake.
Little Brandon. No, we're like best. We'd be best friends. He's the best. And we sat down. We dug through a bunch of stuff. We wrote a bunch of songs that week, and it was really fun. But that one always felt really sort of like special, and I guess that we knew there was something there.
But then now that it's become one of the biggest songs of the year, maybe for many years, you said you were standing on stage watching him sing it, a song that you and he wrote in Sydney, and you're watching this crowd connect with God. I will never know that feeling of watching thousands of people have conversations with God through a song that you put on a piece of paper.
Yeah, it's crazy. I actually can't really describe it, but it makes it all kind of like, not that it's not worth it. I feel like I have a really good job. It's a lot of fun, but it does. There's a certain kind of, there's something that happens there when you get to see that. Honestly, especially if it's like you accidentally see it. Say it's like, because I think sometimes songs, they kind of feel like, I imagine like my kids are young, but I imagine it feels like sending your kids off to college. Like at some point, they don't really, they're still yours, but they kind of are living their own life. And I think one of the coolest things, say you like if I walk into like a church and they're singing like it's almost like, oh, you're here. I didn't know you were coming. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a weird, bizarre kind of feeling, but really cool to kind of see songs. They have their own life and people do with them what they want to do with them. And it's a really rewarding when it's helping people, like when it is actually finding them wherever they need to be found.
Awesome. It is, great to finally have you in, and looking forward to the latest album. Came out, it was this year?
I think, was it end of last year? From
Benjamin William Hastings. We've got a lot of fans of yours around our building. And great to have a first chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
The Thursday Afternoon Chat, your favorite artists with Jayar.